Hi everyone, Comic Reviewer here. This time reviewing on the first issue of Ultimate X-Men. Now, Ultimate X-Men was the next entry after the success of Ultimate Spider-Man that was meant to be a cleaner, new, and fresher take on the X-Men series, which the first run was done by Mark Millar, who wasn't familiar with the X-Men, but only watched 2 of the X-Men movies. And the cover mainly has Wolverine looking jacked up while kind of going through the streets. And the story starts off how in Los Angeles, people see from the skies that Sentinels have shown up and are sapping down any other potential mutants. And we see how one kid who becomes terrified gets stepped on. And we see how there's news debates, things about there being minimal casualties, and even talking about the bombing from the Brotherhood of Mutants 7 days ago. And seeing Magneto's footage, Bolivar Trask, and the Sentinel Initiative. We also see how one of the people at the bar says, "Geez, I haven't seen anyone looking so nervous watching TV since my old man bet the rent on last year's Super Bowl." And we see how he tries to confront Beast, figuring that he's a mutant, and tries to go for him. But we see how Beast manages to survive easily and takes him down. And we see how the bartender threatens to shoot him, but we see how Hank gives him a tip, and see how he becomes the first recruit for Xavier's mutants. We also see how Jean Grey tries to find Aurora, who's also known as Storm. Here, she's meant to be a car thief who is rescued by Jean Grey. And we see how, in the Ultimate Universe, Colossus is an arms dealer, and we see how he gets double-crossed by Samid and his lackeys. And we see how him and his other Russian Mafia members get gunned down, but Colossus surviving, revealing his sort of metal skin. And we see how Dream recruits him as the last member to the group. And we see how Cyclops gets to know the team with their black and yellow uniforms that was taking inspiration from the X-Men movies. And we see how they're wondering how the people know about the school, but we see how Xavier points out through their minds that they've been put in a trance, so everything's going to be fine. And we see how Xavier greets them and points out how it's called the Cerebro system, and even uses it to kind of peek into the minds of his favourite writers, and is amazed with what good ideas that get left on the cutting floor. And we see how Xavier points out that many years ago, him and Magneto built their sanctuary in the Savage Lands, but because of a disagreement, left Xavier paralyzed. And we see how Xavier's been recruiting them to help deal with the sort of dangers and threats. And even talks about looking for Bobby Drake, who is also known as Iceman. We see how they enter to New York, wondering where they are. He is. And we see how Hank manages to find him. And we see how Jean says, "Not from where I'm standing, people. Turn around." And we see a whole army of Sentinels getting ready to take on other potential mutants. And we see how Ultimate Hank manages to rescue Bobby Drake. And we see how they manage to kind of get out of the bus just in time. And we see how Aurora tries to use her weather abilities despite her protests. So we see how she manages to take down some Sentinels, and figures why Aurora can't really use her powers fully. We see how Hank has to try to avoid being sapped at, and basically manages to get 2 of the Sentinels to kind of aim at the same target themselves. And we see how mainly Cyclops destroys what remains of the other one, and Colossus manages to throw a sort of large truck onto it. And we see how Scott Summers says, "Over here, you piece of junk." And of course, we kind of see how he gets held on by a Sentinel, but uses another ability of his Cyclop beams, and gets rescued by Jean Grey just in time. And we see how Bobby Drake tries to use his ice abilities, and of course, manages to freeze the Sentinel. And despite what they've done, it's clear that everyone still hates them, and says, "You just split his head open, you idiot. Good! I hope he's dead. Maybe then you freaks you will finally get the message." Are you people insane? This boy just saved your lives. Jean, let it go. It's not worth it. Let's just get out of here. And of course, we see how they manage to get out just in time. And we see how Magneto gets word from the Salvage Lands that Xavier's been recruiting other mutants. And we see how he gets word that Ahmad has returned without the nuclear weapon, and has it talk with him in the music room, but asks him that he's going to teach him a lesson, and asks about his pacemaker, which of course he properly rips out and tells Scarlet Witch to clean up the mess. So they're going to need an assassin to help deal with Xavier. And Quicksilver says, just tell me where he is. I promise he'd be dead between your next 2 heartbeats, sir. Oh, shut up, Pietro. Charles would close down your mind before you are halfway across the Pacific Ocean. I need a qualified assassin to find him and kill him before he converts any others young mutants to his naive angel ideals. And we see how he's decided to recruit Wolverine to help finish the job. And this is the story. So, issue 1 is kind of okay. Like I said, unlike Stan Lee's first issue of X-Men, this one has a bit of a build-up and is setting things to a big climatic story, much like Ultimate Spider-Man. And here I like the idea of the black and yellow uniforms, as it's a break from the whole colourful costumes that we did see in the comics and other stuff before. So I think this issue still deserves a thumbs up. Still alright and still okay. So, Comic Reviewer here, signing out.